To the Africa Army, to the soldiers of Tunisia, Italy, Corsica and the island of Elba, for whom these victories were simply steps on the road to more battles and ultimately victory. June 1940. That day at the Rotonde crossroads, Germany thought it could destroy our country's greatness and unity forever, but France had already given her reply. The mortar of French unity is the blood of the French men and women who did not accept the armistice and, despite Rotonde, were still dying for France. The blood of those who, in the words of Corneille, did not want to know the shame of dying without having fought. 8th of November 1942, and the Allied fleet is taking liberation troops and weapons to North Africa, proving that the sacrifice of the first resistance fighters was not in vain. Like them, the Africa Army will take up the fight. Germany is holding Tunis. To protect the Allies as they disembark and form up, our troops are closing off the Medjerda Valley to the north and the Tebessa Gap to the south. The frontier with Algeria is covered. From nearby Italian bases, the enemy is swiftly moving its troops and equipment to Bizerte and Tunis. Once again, battle is expected on French soil. On the plains, our soldiers are taking over from shepherds. The Africa Army is advancing. Legionnaires and infantry take up the fight today, equipped and armed just as they were on the day they left. They all have threadbare greatcoats, worn-out boots and obsolete weapons, but they are marching to battle, and with them are all the forces of the Empire, even the Goumiers, the most fanatical of our partisans. Equipment, hidden from the armistice councils, reappears on the roads to the front. Even the oldest railway wagons are back in active service. The army we thought was lost has regrouped in just a few days and, gathering together its slender resources, is preparing to face the enemy and fight. On the 19th of November, our troops took up their position in the north, near Medjez El Bab. In the morning, General Barré rejected two ultimatums. Links are established between elements of the various units. Artillery is disposed along a vast front to make the first strike against the German offensive. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the battle begins. On the 10th of December, the Allies are holding a line from the sea to Boarada and covering Gafsa to the south. From the southern end of the northern front, for a month the French will sustain offensive and defensive combat towards Oued El Kabir and Pichon in order to hold the crossings through the small ridge. Near Oued El Kabir, Moroccan Tabors are in action, attacking the high ground. The enemy has suffered significant losses. Prisoners have been taken. This is what the text transmitted on the 21st of December says. Prisoners, the first of the many who will raise their arms at each stage of the new campaigns. It is the end of December, and added to what had been captured from the enemy is American equipment. French soldiers will become familiar with Allied equipment, then with the vehicles that they see advancing towards the lines. But above all, we need anti-aircraft weapons. Anti-aircraft machine guns are backed up by rapid-fire Bofors guns, scarring the Tunisian sky. At the end of January and in February, the enemy attempts to drive the Allies back on the large ridge to maintain communications with the retreating Afrika Korps. The most violent attacks will threaten the Tebessa region from the east and southeast. Allied troops halt the Germans on a line centered on Kasserine. Two armored German divisions and Italian units have reached the border with Algeria. To halt this thrust of Mark IIIs, Mark IVs and Tigers, American tanks are counterattacking, while further east we are still doing a good job despite using antiquated weapons. With artillery support, we crushed the German infantry that had infiltrated Suiva. Stopped in its tracks, the enemy surrenders en masse. The Italians, who had been certain of defeat for some time, and the Germans, beaten at their best. From Fezzan, where they have ended the occupation, General Leclerc's soldiers arrive in the south of Tunisia. This is the beginning of what is to become a legendary epic for soldiers who have followed their commander from Chad. On the 26th of March, the 8th Army breaks through the Mareth line, while Leclerc's column takes El Amar. The German retreat gathers pace. In the center, the First Army attacks towards Kairouan. The French soldiers of the 19th Corps advance on Pichon and occupy the eastern ridge. To the north, the African Free Corps, working with the Americans, push the enemy back to Bizerte. The 8th Army, whose celebrated Desert Rats covered 2,000 kilometers fighting all the way, have driven Rommel from Mareth, skirting the Kazmat line and robbing the enemy of all hope of escape to the south. In the center of the front, the French are moving forward over mined terrain. Our soldiers have learned fast how to clear the roads, often having to rely on courage in place of equipment. On the 10th of April, General Valvert was blown up by a mine opposite Pichon. A headstone which hails the head of the 19th Corps commemorates his tragic death. Despite the obstacles, our troops advance, their route now marked by guns and armored vehicles abandoned by the retreating enemy. Tunisia's plains bear the marks of German defeat, as Europe's will tomorrow. Wrecked equipment, graves, and prisoners. The African Free Corps are fighting in the northern sector, bordering the Mediterranean. These combatants, volunteers for the most part, have English kit and American weapons. They are holding a difficult sector. Alongside the American army, they take part in action near Bizerte, in the Ishkal Lake region. On the 21st of April, the order to attack was given, an attack that will continue until the 4th of May and take the Free Corps to the gates of Bizerte. Like Sfax, like Kairouan, like dozens of African towns and thousands of towns in France, Bizerte paid a very high price for its liberation. A massive bombardment precedes the Allies' final push towards Tunis. Armored units, the enemy's last positions, are in retreat and preparing to flee towards Cap Bon, but are violently attacked. The Luftwaffe could not react. It saw only the soil of Africa, where our airmen kept it nailed down. On the 7th of May, the lead units enter the town. On the pavements, Tunisians shout for joy as the French, British and American troops pass. Normal daily life is already returning. Civilians are organizing themselves in the wake of the soldiers. They go back to their robes, their beards, their worship. Tunisians return to the protection of France alone and can once more enjoy their customs and freedom. The troops file past their commanders, Generals Eisenhower, Giraud, Alexander and Juin. As the enthusiasm of the people of the desert, the Jebels and the plains surrounds them, we think back to the opening days of the campaign and the French battalions who defended fronts sometimes 25 kilometers wide, without mines or tanks, and with almost no aircraft. They bore the brunt of the battle, and now experience that most profound joy. Victory. But a victory that is just one step towards liberation.